The battle for Hollywood.
Eventually, either Paramount or Netflix will be the new owners.
The creative community in Hollywood has a real fear that Netflix will kill the theater window.
At the end of the day, people are voting with their feet and with their wallet. They don't go to the theater anymore, and they are, subscribing to a streaming service.
Most people don't even watch Netflix on a TV, they might watch it on a laptop or even on a phone. They literally concept them so they are aware that people are not watching the screen all the time.
I think as long as things are being produced, that's the most important thing. I have less sentiments here if it's being seen or shown in theaters.
I think for filmmakers, and it's very hard to say which one will be worse.
This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Welcome everybody to episode 94 of CineD Focus Check. Well, we're starting off today with the battle for Hollywood, which is the big topic of the week. A lot of you guys will have heard that Netflix announced an agreement to buy Warner Brothers Discovery's studio and HBO Max for $83 billion. And then we thought, okay, well, that's not good because Netflix taking over a big Hollywood studio with so much IP. I mean, you have incredible series like Game of Thrones, you have IP like Batman and a lot of other stuff under Warner Brothers, and Netflix taking over, probably not, like you said, very much interested in theaters. And then what happened next?
Well, next, Paramount actually decided that they can do even better and put even more money into the whole thing and try to jeopardize. It's all about politics and money eventually.
Yeah.
And it makes zero sense to us normal people. So much money for what? Power.
Exactly. And I mean, it's crazy that, Netflix has become really successful over the last few years. I think they're one of the few ones who actually make money. Which, if we had this conversation a couple of years ago, everybody would have said Netflix stands no chance because they were the new kid on the block, had no IP, a lot of original productions, but they were the first ones. And I think their first mover advantage with a lot of people just simply streaming. You see with all those streaming giants competing with each other, they have so many more people. I think we're talking about something like, I can be wrong, it's something like 500 million people are on Netflix, and something between 4 and 500 million.
Netflix is more than 300 million something. But
okay, but the second one is Disney, and that's just 200 million. And that's incredible, actually. So they have this power, and now they're threatening to take over Warner Brothers Discovery. So I think the whole discussion, the background of this discussion for us as filmmakers should be, what does it mean for the future of cinema? It doesn't matter which one out of those comes out. I mean, there's a big difference between those offers, which is Warner Brothers, Netflix actually doesn't want the networks. They don't care about TV. They don't want about, but Paramount wants the networks as well. So they offer more money. And yeah, but in the end,
since I'm building a reputation of being pessimistic in our podcast, which of course I'm not, but I think the matter of truth that this is another nail in the coffin of Hollywood and cinema in general, because at the end of the day, it's the world has flipped. Now it's those streaming companies who are actually buying the big studios, and doesn't matter how we look at it. Eventually, if they will decide business-wise that they don't want to keep some of the theaters themselves, they will just close them. They will not. It's not a matter of, hey, look, we have theaters. So it's all business related, and I'm really sorry to say. I'm a person. I love cinema, but not in the theaters. I have it up to here to go and eat bad popcorn and see and pay. I don't know. I have to break a mortgage every time that I go with the family, because it's not only the tickets, which sometimes is ridiculous. Yeah, the price is ridiculous. It's more about all the surrounding. If you want to have, so you can do this once in a while. Here in Austria, I actually have a very nice initiatives. Every first weekend of the beginning of a month, you have a really reduced price, so it's really feasible to go with the family. But other than that, I like my peace and quiet. I want to sit next to the people I love and watch the films when I want to watch them. And I'm just, for me, you mentioned the creators, us as filmmakers. First of all, for me, it's just those numbers are unbelievable. Like the money, the amount of money that this is going to, like, where is the money coming from, first of all?
Yeah, I mean, it is true. I think that in the past, I think I had a conversation with somebody on LinkedIn when we posted about this. In the past, the theaters used to be every man's kind of place to go to watch movies, right?
Fun.
In the old days,
really
in the early 20th century, when people didn't have TVs, that's where people went to watch even news, newsreels and stuff like that. And then over time, it became more of a kind of like celebrated thing to go there and dedicate time to focus on a story where it's completely about the story, the huge canvas, a communal experience. You experience a movie. That's what I like about the cinema. If the audience is disciplined, of course, and doesn't pull out their phones or whatever. But there is, like the last movie I went to is One Battle After Another, the P.T. Anderson. I'm a huge fan of P.T. Anderson, and I think it's an amazing movie. And it's one of those movies you don't get very often at the cinema anymore.
And you have to see this on the big screen?
You have to. It's a completely different experience, because at home, it's simply, unless you really have a home cinema where you have the right distance and the sound system, which a lot of people have, but there's always distractions, of course, and especially when you have kids. But even if they're asleep, it's
but the popcorn is free.
The popcorn is free, but it's not better. But it's in general, it's a different experience. I love the experience of seeing a movie together with people I don't know. And it's just this, you know that you're experiencing the same thing with strangers in a way, but it has something quite unique. That's also what I like about film festivals in general. But that's the question, I think in the last few years, we've seen those big studios mostly focus on those big tentpole blockbusters. So they do a sequel of a prequel of a sequel. I'm so confused, like all those superhero movies that I've gotten tired about 10 years ago. Now everybody got tired of. And I think that's where the struggle is now, to still convince people to go to the cinema. And I think the whole experience, like you said, it's a price issue. It's become incredibly expensive in a lot of countries to go to the cinema. It's also, and that's the more troubling thing, I think a lot of the good productions you can't even see them in the cinemas anymore, or not for a very long time. And that's actually, when you look at Netflix, they still put some stuff in theaters, but only because they want to be eligible for awards. And that's important to know for a lot of people. If you want to qualify for the Academy Awards considerations and other awards, you need to have a theater window, and they of course try to minimize this. So there's usually in the US there's it needs to be a nationwide rollout or a certain amount of theaters, and it needs to be playing at least for 2-3 weeks. And if you look at the latest movie, I think the new Rian Johnson movie, Wake Up Dead Man, I think it's called. It's the third installation of his murder mystery series. It was literally in cinemas
2 weeks, no?
For 2 weeks, since Thanksgiving until now. It made very little money because they didn't put it in a lot of theaters. And I guess, I'm for sure they only did this to be eligible for the awards. And it's a shame, because those are great movies. But
even does it matter? Because you said, let's concentrate on the filmmakers, like us who are actually working in the industry. Does it matter if it's being shown on a theater or not? Because at the end of the day, as long as there is work and there are productions, do you really care if it's if you see it on a TV or on a big screen?
Yeah, it's not just about the money. It's the money that people make.
No,
the production.
It's nothing to do with the money. It's work. It's storytelling. It's still you have a film, and the question is if the last part, where to show it, if it's so important to show it on a cinema, or at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
I think it matters because it's an appreciation of the work. That's where a lot of the movies are intended for the big screen, and you would format a movie differently if it was made for a smaller screen. And when I say smaller screen, I think we have to realize that, most people don't even watch Netflix on a TV, they might watch it on a laptop or even on a phone. And then also the other thing is that you see already Netflix with their, mass production. I'm not talking about these big movies that they make, which are, more like a one-off kind of thing. If you talk about, something like Love is Blind or whatever reality series that they make, they literally concept them so they are aware that people are not watching the screen all the time. They are writing the scripts in a way that they are repeating the most important information several times because they know that people are actually sitting next to their TV with their phone in hand, doom scrolling on Instagram. And that's terrible. Why do we have to, of course they kind of cater to that, but on the other hand, shouldn't they do a better job to actually make the content interesting enough that people don't do that? And that's, it's just yes, everything is storytelling, but it's almost like, and I'm aware not everything is art house or whatever, or very profound storytelling or whatever, but still, do we need this? Because I fear that this kind of attitude will also creep into every production, and even on these big intellectual property things that Warner Brothers owns, that of course, will creep into all of those series as well. I don't want to have a Batman movie which is like a reality series or something like that. And that's the danger here. I think that everything kind of becomes like a watered down. Watered down, I think is the right word.
At the end of the day, people are voting with their feet and with their wallet. They don't go to the theater anymore, and they are subscribing to a streaming service. I think there are too many streaming services, and that's a different thing, because at the end of the day, to how many of those can you actually subscribe, and how many hours a day can you watch something? So that actually leads again to piracy in some ways, because people want to see, and I don't know if I in my family they want to see some Disney, and we want to see some Netflix stuff or whatever. At the end of the day, you can end up with, at least €100 or $100 easily. And if you take Spotify on top and all of those services, you will end up, and it's fine. Again, it's fine to pay, of course. That's not even the question. But I'm just saying, they don't make it easy on us. But that's maybe a different topic. To stay on the actual topic here, I think it's too late. I think one of those options will eventually be endorsed by
Netflix.
Netflix, and either them or Paramount.
Oh, actually by Warner Brothers. Yeah.
Exactly. Sorry. And eventually either Paramount or Netflix will be the new owners. And let's see where that's going to take us.
So what option do we think is better? Let's just summarize it a little bit. So basically, like I mentioned in the beginning, Netflix announced an agreement to buy Warner Brothers Discovery Studio and HBO Max for $83 billion. So they already have an agreement. Then Paramount, that's Skydance, that's the Ellison family's company, came in with a hostile counterbid directly to the shareholders for $108 billion. However, the difference is that Netflix's offer they only want the crown jewels. So they only want the Warner Brothers Studio, the DC brand, and all the IP and HBO. And they're spinning off CNN and the cable networks into a new company called Discovery Global. So that will be separate. They don't care about the networks. Paramount's offer would be everything. So they would want the cable networks and CNN. David Ellison, the CEO of Skydance, argues that is superior because it keeps the studio assets together. Now, like you said in the beginning, Ted Sarandos actually is on record saying that driving folks to a theater is not our business. And that means that the creative community in Hollywood has a real fear that Netflix will kill the theater window.
Not immediately, maybe.
Or just reduce it to the minimum, like it's like 2 weeks, 17 days max. And Paramount, they kind of position themselves as a savior because they already pledged to release 30 plus theatrical movies per year, up from Paramount's current 8. By the way, Paramount had a really successful theater run.
That's right.
They had 8, which is a record, 8 very successful movies in the theaters. And now they are positioning themselves as the defenders of this theater cinema experience. Now, regulatory hurdles are still there because, of course, Netflix owns like 40% of the streaming market, and the Producers Guild is petitioning Congress to not allow that. Now, the problem with the Paramount offer, however, is that a lot of the money from the funding actually comes from the Middle East, and there's a real question whether that's a foreign influence and it will influence the content that they're making if all that money comes from different countries. What do you think? I mean, it's almost like I don't know which, can we trust Paramount to release those 30 plus theatrical movies per year? On the other hand, Netflix, with all their mass production, however, I think they do also have a reputation of making story-driven content and are very successful in developing their own IP, I have to say. If you think about a lot of the most successful streaming series over the last few years, a lot of them came from Netflix. And in a way, there is a trust that they are very successful in making great content that people like to watch. That's also, kind of artistic in a way sometimes. Well, even though they also have their Love is Blind kind of stuff, but
let's put the sentiments aside. Let's try to look at this from the business perspective. Yeah, if Netflix wins here, they will have HBO, which is really great, and maybe at the beginning they will keep it as the identity of HBO will continue to go forward. But then at some point, if there will be overlapping jobs or overlapping whatever, they will start to let people go. We should never forget all those sweet words from both sides. It's okay, but when you have to run a business and you have to make money, they will start to cut stuff. Maybe not on the first year, maybe later. But that's not the thing. I think as long as things are being produced, that's the most important thing. I have less sentiments here if it's being seen or shown in theaters. It's more about to continue to produce.
The production work, yeah. But the thing is, if Netflix owned Warner Brothers, they would have so much leverage on everything they pay people on sets, because basically, if you are
that's already happening now. I mean, we know this. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I mean, there has been this streaming boom, which of course, since there has been some consolidation.
What are you talking about, Nino? We know that there's so much job cuts and so much less production anyway because of the streaming services. We know that Hollywood is dying in so many ways.
It's not dying, but it's transforming, and there has been a huge boom in production because of the streamers for many years, and now.
But in their conditions, in the streamers' conditions. So, and part of it is, we know, some of this is also reducing the cost. But that's the new beast, yeah. And I think it's not a matter of we have to accept it, but we do have to accept it because that's how the business is being run now. So,
I think for filmmakers, and it's very hard to say which one will be worse or better. It's more like which one is worse. Honestly, I mean, both options are not great. I think it's better to have a multitude of different owners in any industry. Less monopoly means usually better rates for everybody involved, because if one studio wants to hire you and the other one wants you to, you're going to go with a better offer, or who gives you more creative freedom. And if there are less options, you simply have to accept what's there. And so in that way, both of them are not great. However, from a filmmaker's perspective who wants their stuff on the big screen, maybe the Paramount offer is better, but I don't think that's like you said, because there's this general trend of less people going to theaters and so on. So this might only delay that. Paramount also has their own streaming service, and they also will want to grow that. However, with Netflix taking over HBO, that would basically putting the number 1 and I think the number 3 together, and they would be very much dominating the streaming area, and I think they could also dominate basically what they pay everybody.
Nino, there's a very famous falafel place here in Vienna that now is closing because they have like 30% less people visiting, and the overall cost of making the falafel is much higher. When they said after 23 years now, when they came up and said we are closing, there were thousands of comments in Instagram saying, oh, such a pity, we love your falafel. Why am I saying this? What's the connection here? It's exactly with theaters. Everybody will say, change of ownership. We really want the big screen. But there's always such a gap between loving a place and literally spending the money going there. And that's exactly what's happening with the falafel place and with the theaters. So I suggest a year from now, which is not hard to miss because it will be end of the year, next year, let's see where we are. It's a date. We're going to sit here, same place, probably episode close to 200, and see what happened here. Of course, we're going to discuss this throughout the year, but it will be interesting to watch backward.
Yeah. I think one last thing we have left out of this conversation so far is this general change of audience behavior. I think it's not like you already hinted at that, but there's not a lack of storytelling. There's not a lack of interest in storytelling. I think people consume more video content than ever before. They just are on different platforms because now those what used to be, high quality, highly produced, expensively produced content, like whether it's movies or series, they are all competing now with our time, and they're competing with YouTube, they're competing with Instagram and TikTok, whether we like it or not. And we already see this trend. And funny enough, I think here in the Western world, this hasn't really taken over so much. But we see in Asia, there's this huge trend of vertical narrative. I wonder if, I think there's room for innovation here. Not that that's something that, is new or anything, but we imagine having some of the famous IP accept that, and kind of make a series targeted at people literally watching stuff on their phones vertically. I'm not saying, I want a vertical Batman series or whatever, but it is something to get famous IP that everybody knows already and kind of bring it into this new age just as an additional outlet. And I think that could be,
but
the funny thing is
on mobile phone again, it's a 1-2 minute, up to 2 minutes short clips. It's like a mini drama.
Yeah.
Micro drama, and then what? So again, we're moving away from the big screen. That shows again why we.
Yeah.
Why
but that's what I'm saying. It's like it. Absolutely, it's away from the big screen unless we invert. What about vertical cinema? You want to watch up or down? I think there has been this viral video from like 10 years ago, which made fun of that. But it's true. I mean, we already see. We talked about this before. I think Tilta actually released. No, it was Axoon. They released like multi-camera rigs to mount phones vertically, specifically targeted at companies who are making vertical dramas. And I was asking. In the interview, is that a thing? That's the first time I heard about that. I think it was at NAB this year. And absolutely. And it's so huge in India, in China, in Thailand. And I think it's not really, in the US or Europe, we haven't seen that much. But whoever takes over Warner Brothers, that could be a way to get people away from, TikTok or Instagram. Compete them with their own weapons.
That's why I love Open Gate. You don't have to choose if to look from up, down, or left to right. It's a joke. It's just a joke. Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Talking about watching stuff on mobile phones. There's a new development in sensor technology.
Yeah. The funny thing is, every time Sony, we know, is of course one of the big ones in terms of sensor technology. A lot of other camera manufacturers and smartphone manufacturers use their sensors, and every time we see something show up on the Sony semiconductor website, we know that this will be coming to a camera or a smartphone near us quite soon. And this time, it's a new sensor for smartphones called the LYTIA 901. And the interesting thing is it's a 200 megapixel sensor, which sounds effective megapixels, which sounds, of course, insane for such a small sensor. This is a 1/1.12 inch type stacked CMOS image sensor. And the interesting thing is, now, of course, there is something, like relating to image quality. A lot of it, of course, that comes from the lenses used. And we've seen these, like in the last few years, almost every higher end smartphone has at least 3 cameras and lenses on the phone. Now, the question that I posed in this article is, could this sensor mean almost the death of a triple camera phone? Now, like I said, of course, the lenses also have a significant effect to the quality of the image. However, if you have a sensor with this resolution,
you can crop. Just to explain
exactly,
those who are not familiar, if you have such a big resolution, you can literally crop to different focal lengths in a way.
Yeah.
And then, of course, depends on the quality. But I tell you again, if the manufacturers will recognize that it's saving them money and the quality is acceptable, I guess we're gonna see, because this sensor is actually supposed to be produced already next year.
We already see, a similar thing with current smartphones, like for example, Apple's iPhones, that Apple actually claims that some of the crop modes are like real lenses. I mean, it's like in the camera app that the 2x zoom is not an actual lens, but they pretend it's a lens, for example, and other camera manufacturers do that too. And there's always interpolation in between those sizes. So it's not a completely new thing, but with this resolution, of course, this could be a possibility. Now, in general, of course, the question is always how many pixels do you have to crop into, and how good are those pixels? And usually you see the quality degrading quite a bit after 2x magnification on current sensors. And with this new LYTIA 901 sensor that is actually going to show up in camera phones relatively soon, because it's already shipping now to the manufacturers, they use a quad Bayer coding. It's called QQBC array structure, where 16 adjacent pixels arranged in a 4x4 grid share the same color filter.
And AI.
And AI, well, that's it, yeah. During normal shooting, these 16 pixels combine into one, delivering a 12.5 megapixel output with exceptional light gathering. And when the zoom is engaged, the sensor performs remosaicing to unlock individual pixel data from the full 200 megapixel array. And also, like you said, the AI processing is now on that sensor directly, which of course will also save space and power inside the phone, because you don't need a separate processor for that. So basically, the reconstruction will happen on the chip on the sensor. So basically,
from the photo samples that we saw, what is really striking is the dynamic range. I mean, all of this HDR stuff, if you compare the places with shadows and against light, it's quite impressive. And also the sharpness, together with AI, which obviously is supposed to sharpen. We are talking about up to 8K in 30p, but I guess the sweet spot will be 4K. I mean, it's a bit hard to tell from the actual press release. But I mean, this is, when the smartphone manufacturers recognize they can make money out of not only photos, but also videos, obviously this is driving the industry forward to show better solutions. And I really wonder, I mean, last year, at the end of the year, we kind of tried to predict that 2026 will be the breakthrough when mobile phones will become more mainstream for video. And we were partially
You mean 25?
25, yeah. Last year, we predicted that 25 will be the year. We're partly right with the iPhone 17 Pro, which is really gaining momentum because of what it can do. But it's not where I thought it's going to be. In all honesty, I thought it's going to be much more spread. But let's see, with such development, let's see if 2026 is going to be the year that mobile phones are being used or actually replacing more and more cameras. I have to tell you, when was this? I think it was last weekend. I pretended to be a tourist with my family in Vienna. We just went to the first district where you see most of the historical the beautiful buildings and a lot of tourists. And I looked at it from the professional side. I wanted to see who is using a smartphone and who is using a mobile phone just to take beautiful photos and I guess also videos. I would say it was the majority, the big majority was mobile phones. So
you don't see any cameras anymore for tourists. I mean, it's very rare.
It's very rare. So,
and then if it's usually a Japanese tourist who is like a camera enthusiast, very often.
So if you kind of narrow down like usability of devices for taking videos or photos, you will end up with on top. Actually, it's like a upside down pyramid. Yeah, like the top is the majority of people using mobile phones right now, and as you go down, you have more like us, the professionals, who still insist on using proper cameras, all the way down to cinema cameras. Yeah.
I think for professional applications, there's a couple of things that people never talk about, but the reality is that as soon as you move into professional workflows, you very quickly realize you need to rig up whatever you're using, whether it's a camera or a phone, and then it easily becomes bigger, so you're losing the size advantage. So I think actually one of the things that a lot of gear manufacturers that do smartphone accessories now in the professional field, like Tilta and Small Rig, have realized now is that actually you want to stay small. You don't want to build it up. You don't need to pretend that this is something more than it is.
Defeating the purpose, of course.
If you look at the behind the scenes of, for example, those Apple events that they all shoot on of course, just to show off with the iPhone 17 Pro now, and before also with the 16 and 15, it's funny in a way that, of course, they use it as the main camera, but you look at the rigs and the motion control system, it has zero advantage in terms of like how big is the rig. They only want to show off how good the camera is. Fair enough, they're the manufacturer, but in a practical workflow, why would you do that, right? You want to have a more controllable, more flexible, interchangeable lens camera. However, I think for the smaller productions where phones would be very useful, there's two things that are currently preventing, for me, people to use it more. One of them is very obvious. Usually people don't carry two phones. So you have one phone which you need for a lot of other things. You don't want to kind of like dedicate it to the production, because if a phone call comes in or whatever, you can't use it anymore. So that's quite obvious that you can't do that. And the second thing, for video specifically, we still don't have ND filters, which are kind of like part of the package. Like if this was somehow built in, same as the same discussion we had with mirrorless cameras in general, even if you use an app like Blackmagic Camera or Mavis or whatever, which we're going to talk about in a second, you still need to add ND filters like you do with any other professional camera if you don't have them built in. And that's the one thing. And proper audio. The audio part gets easier now. You even have wireless transmitters that are connecting directly to the phone, even without a receiver, from Rode and also Holyland and so on. But it's very difficult still. You kind of need a specific case to attach an ND filter and stuff like that. And I understand why the mainstream, meaning Apple themselves or whoever makes phones or Google or Huawei or whatever, they don't actually make cases that are kind of fit for that, right? You need a separate case and then you need to carry the filter separately and so on. If somebody made something where all of this is built in and it's kind of one package and it's not much bigger than the actual phone, I think those things would be used a lot more for professional things. But as soon as you're on set and you need an additional angle, yes, you can use your phone, but then you realize, oh, actually, I didn't prepare for that, so I don't have the ND filter for it, for example. And if you want to keep the same, cinematic motion or whatever, you have to use it. So it's kind of, you lose that option and then people just use it for behind the scenes. In terms of quality, I think we're there, especially with Apple Log and all that. We're currently working on the lab test for the iPhone 17 Pro. We've come across some things that we, I think we mentioned it last week.
We didn't expect, actually.
That we didn't expect. So some stuff needs to be clarified before we publish any results here. But in general, we see that all the manufacturers are putting a lot of effort into, getting more dynamic range, getting more latitude out of those tiny sensors. And there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't use them for professional work now. It's just what I just said. It's like basically, it's the main purpose of the phone is being a phone, doing a million other things. And if you dedicate it to a production, you kind of lose it during that day for a lot of other things, I think. It, of course, depends on the kind of production. If that is solved somehow, plus the ND filter thing and the audio thing, I think a lot of people would use it for a lot more things.
And the power thing and the memory thing. I mean, there's still a little bit a way to go, but I think we both agreed because we talked on the other day, how to make things a bit more appealing. Also for us, because we, in all honesty, we don't work with phones as much as we should have in order to get more experience with those. And you don't want to defeat the main purpose here, which is actually that's the camera that most of the time with you.
Yeah.
And personally, I use it mostly for family events, and then I couldn't care less about ND or anything. It's mostly on auto mode.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'm happy with what it gives me.
All right, let's move on actually and stay with the smartphone topic. Mavis camera. These guys I think interviewed at NAB. It's a camera app that's free for the iPhone. That now, of course, they are very much competing with Blackmagic camera, which is also a free app, and they now introduced an update, and it's actually a paid thing that's in-camera purchase. It's called Film Kit, and it gives you LUT workflows, Open Gate capture, and also Apple Log 2 support finally from that app as well.
So it's free or it's not free?
The app is free. Okay. Well, the app is free, but it's an in-app purchase.
Okay. So if you want to make the most out of it, it's not expensive. I think it's only $10. Yeah. A year or indefinite? We have the price somewhere.
Let me check. The price is $10 one-time in-app purchase, so it's very affordable. Yeah, but I mean, basically, they are of course competing with Blackmagic camera. However, I have to say, like having used Blackmagic camera quite a bit over the last few weeks, also for our tests, it's amazing what it can do, the Blackmagic app. But it's not really straightforward, like it's really made for professionals.
But it's not intuitive, unlike
it's not intuitive,
because Blackmagic is so well known for very simple menus in their cameras, and here it somehow become more difficult.
Well, they're adding a lot of functions, and I think a lot of it has to do, for me, the challenges are, switching from auto modes to manual modes is a bit confusing. You kind of have everything on automatic, then you switch to manual, and then you can have individual things like ISO and white balance or whatever on manual or audio, and it's a bit confusing when it's on auto and when it's not on auto. And also the results you're getting. That's exactly the kind of stuff we hinted at, which is actually giving different results for the lab tests. But I think the Mavis app has this advantage that it's much more intuitive. It's very simple. It looks much more similar to the original camera app from Apple, but it gives you those additional options. So I think if you're looking for, shooting with LUTs, like as a preview, you can either use them baked in. You can just apply LUTs and bake it into your footage, which, fair enough, of course. Or you apply them afterwards and just use them as a preview LUT. You can do either of those things now. And they even have some, I think it comes with a couple of LUTs that they made, which you can use, but you can also use your own ones. It's more straightforward than the Blackmagic camera app, to put it as simple as that. And I think it's worth trying out in general, also the free version. And it's nice that they finally now also support, of course, those new features, which is Apple Log 2 and the Open Gate mode of the new phones. So much more straightforward. I think it would be worth doing maybe a side-by-side actually of this app with the Blackmagic camera app, just to see where the differences are. But again, you're almost overwhelmed with the options of the Blackmagic camera app.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I want to move to the next topic, which is another app, which the name is DIGILOG, and it's an iPhone-only app that brings Kodak 500T film-inspired look, open gate, ProRes recording, and it's completely free to download. And this app is made by David Bross. He's a French gentleman, used to be a cinematographer, kind of moved on doing other stuff in life, but he is still programming and doing things that are related to our industry, including he will try to revive the Digital Bollocks project. Yeah, it's on his...
We should talk to him on the podcast.
We should definitely. He sounds like a very interesting person. And the app that he's offering is so straightforward. I mean, it's not 100% refined yet, but it's very nice to use. And you have 2 film stocks, and again, these are no LUTs. He's literally, let me just read it because I want to be accurate here. He's reconstructing the image from the raw sensor data using a film-inspired color science pipeline. The app offers a Kodak 500T inspired look and ARRI Rec 709 profiles. And you can use it in either ProRes 422 or H.264, and from iPhone SE third generation. So basically, it's again kind of democratizing a certain look. And I'm sure, I hope you guys know that this 500T, Kodak 500T look is really nice. It's much more, it's vivid, it's colorful, it's warm. Really how we like it. And if you like something which is a bit more straightforward, the ARRI Rec 709 is there. And the video that we are showing in the background was actually while he did the beta testing. Much more material will come from him soon. And he also really pushes into anamorphic work. That's why in the simple menu, you can, of course, use anamorphic off or different squeeze ratio. This is because you are shooting in open gate, basically. So give it a try. Download it for free. It's simple. It's nice to use for photos and for videos. And as always, I think we have a really warm heart for people that are doing for the industry and in a free way, basically.
Great. That rounds off our smartphone topics of this week, I would say. And let's move on to focusing. So basically, the next topic block would be called Bridging the Gap. And what is that gap? Well, there's 2 things we want to talk about. It's first of all the Tilta Nucleus autofocus adapter, which you did a nice video about in Interbi in Japan a couple of weeks ago, which we published last week. So we all remember the Best of Show award, which we gave at IBC to Viltrox for their Nexus Focus adapter, which we are actually in the process of testing. However, we
experienced some issues.
We had some issues. We're basically waiting for a firmware update, and then we can continue to work with that. But it's a similar concept. Basically, it gives you autofocus on manual cinema lenses, by connecting a motor with the adapter.
Yeah, it reads the data straight from the sensor. So basically, you don't need LiDAR or any other elements here. Basically, and from what I saw, this is doing it in a very nice way. Of course, the whole thing will be released only next year. One of the reasons is that Tilta is literally gathering more and more information, more data about lenses, and then they are putting this data into the adapter, so you'll be able to choose a preset of the lens that you are using, and then you don't have to calibrate anything because the Nucleus 2 will know how to react to the lens data. That's what takes the time, because what I saw is pretty much done. Yeah. The other very nice thing about this specific device, that with the controller you'll be able to either choose manual or autofocus very easily by a press of a button on the controller itself. If you release, it goes back to autofocus, and if you press, it's manual. And I think that's really nice for a assistants in any kind who are actually working with this device.
It's funny because that's exactly what I suggested to Viltrox when they showed us the adapter.
They didn't have this. I can't remember.
No, they didn't have it immediately. Yeah, but interesting. Okay. And they also, in general, it'd be interesting to look at both of those solutions where the differences are.
Of course. But all in all, face detection is there. Everything that the camera can offer focus-wise is there. And the first mount that they will are working on is actually for the Sony E-mount. And there will be the minimum base in order to start to work with such a system will cost $300 which is not so much, and then with some motors and kits it will go up to 500. But all in all, I think this is a very exciting development, mostly because some of the system that we have in the market, the subject that you are focusing needs to be in the middle. Very problematic otherwise to try to focus if you are using a manual lens and then you kind of turn it into autofocus. With the Viltrox and with the Tilta, this is not the case. That will be very easy to focus also objects that are in the sides. And for me personally, I also like the idea that you will be able to turn any manual anamorphic lens also to autofocus lens. So I think all in all, this is a very exciting development. We can also see from the comments on the video that people are really excited about the possibility.
It's just interesting for me in general that this technology that both of those companies are developing now immediately will obliterate, if it works well, which I think it will, as based on the demos, I will immediately obliterate those autofocus manual lenses that kind of you can switch in, like the cinema lenses with the autofocus option, like for example, from Sigma, from Blazar and so on. Because if this works well, you don't need them. You don't need to have this built in because you can just use this solution.
Yes and no, Nino. Because again, as a one-man band, I want to be as lightweight as possible. And here you will always have an add-on on your camera. You will need to have the motors, you'll need to have some type of roads and whatever, which me personally, if I can avoid it, I'll be happy to avoid it. So I think both systems have a place in the market. Personally, I still like the autofocus lenses because it gives a complete freedom when you're running and gunning. But this is very... I'm curious about this because not all lenses, of course, will be transformed into autofocus. And if you love your manual lens, regardless if it's spherical or anamorphic, you will be able to turn it into an autofocus lens. And that's really... And the price is right. It's not such a...
But LiDAR, for example, I mean, a lot of people, we know how popular the Focus Pro is from DJI. A lot of people use this because of the LiDAR technology. And this, you won't need it anymore, I think.
That's true.
You will, because the problem with LiDAR is the position of the actual sensor on top of the lens. As soon as you go to a longer lens, it will actually block the view, and anything that's a bit lower down, you can't use it anymore, like you said. And the great thing about both those solutions is that it's literally giving you all the autofocus options that the actual camera offers.
Exactly.
So you tap into that. Did they say which mounts it will be available for?
I'm actually trying right now to see. I mean, E-mount for sure, and they didn't provide specific timeline to if RF or L-mount.
So it's actually exactly the same as Viltrox. It's interesting.
I tell you, there's a bit of an insight. Yeah. Companies that own L-mount and RF mount are both proprietary mounts eventually, Canon and Leica.
E-mount too?
E-mount too, yeah. But with some of the mounts, it's a bit easier to get permission to use. And I don't know if they asked like any of those companies, but with some companies, if you want to use the mount, you really need permission to do so.
Of course.
And that's why I think it's a bit more... some of the companies are a bit more hesitant because we know that some of the camera manufacturers are starting to target lens manufacturers, and in this regard, it doesn't matter if it's a lens or not or adapter. You're still using. You have to reverse engineer the protocol in order for the camera to communicate with the adapter. Yeah, so I'm just saying. Maybe they're a bit more cautious here, and that's why they're not rushing to do RF or L mount.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we don't know the specifics, like you said, but it seems like I don't think the Tilta or Viltrox would do this reverse engineered, but they seem to have a permission from Sony do that. Otherwise, I would be surprised why two companies come out with the kind of same solution at the same time. The only thing that I would...
Sorry, Nino, I'm not... Again, I have no information. If they have the permission, I can tell you that by far E-mount is the most widely spread mount right now. So again, if you look from the business perspective, this is what you want to tackle first.
Of course. The main thing I see here, like you said, you want to stay small. I understand that. I think the Viltrox motors are considerably smaller. So I hope that Tilta will also offer smaller motors for this solution in the future, because we know that the Nucleus motors in general, I mean, they're great. They're very responsive. They're fast and flexible. But I think just for a small kit, it would be nice to have a smaller motor, of course, also.
Yeah, well, Tilta is very fast to respond. Another thing that I want to highlight is actually how much power those motors have, because it's I think it's fundamental for the sake of working with different manual lenses to be able to drive them, but also not to kill the lens. Because that's why when this data bases that Tilta is building is very important, that you will, when it comes to drive the motor from minimum to maximum focus, that you will not exceed this, and by doing so you can kill the lens. So
but I guess you will still be able to manually also calibrate.
Of course.
Because you can never have all of those.
That's right.
All right, that's great. Let's move on to another great innovation, actually, that will make a lot of people's lives easier, and that is for the Blackmagic ATEM switchers. Now, the company called Middle Control is bringing actually Middle Things. I think the company is called Middle Things. They bring out a software called Middle Control 3 Pro, which now allows you to completely control Sony cameras with Blackmagic ATEM switchers. Now, as we know, Blackmagic ATEM switchers are extremely popular. We actually use one right here for this podcast for many reasons, of course, because you can control Blackmagic cameras, which we are not using, by the way. We're not using Blackmagic cameras here. We are using Sony cameras. We could use this. And you can also completely control the camera functions of Blackmagic cameras with an ATEM switcher, but that is limited to Blackmagic cameras. You can switch between cameras, all kinds of cameras, as long as you get an HDMI signal with an ATEM switcher, but you don't have camera control. And that goes down to everything from zooming, focus, rec, start, stop, all the menu functions and so on. Now, this company, I think it's a French company, at least the guy is French who's talking here, came out with this software which looks absolutely amazing. There's a free version, and it's called Middle Control 3.0, and there's a pro version too. And you can control most of the current Sony cameras entirely with this software through the ATEM, and it's simply amazing. Yeah, it's opening up a whole new world. We got a lot of comments from people who are actually using exactly this setup, ATEM with Sony cameras, and now you have the flexibility to also control everything about these cameras. And it goes really deep. I mean, you can literally dive into the menus of the cameras from your desktop and change settings. There's even a gimbal control. So if you have a Ronin RS, like a DJI RS4, RS3 connected, you can also control that through the app. So it's really very comprehensive. The video, everything about the software is highly produced. I have to say, it looks like $1 million, like what they kind of are bringing out here. And the software also looks quite advanced. So in terms of usability, I think just for live productions, this is, of course, making life so much easier because we know how widespread Sony cameras are. And actually, like one thing that we're actually missing here in the studio, which I wish we could do, have a 4K version of the podcast, which is not with a normal ATEM. You don't have 4K. You need the big one. We just use the ISO Mini Pro, yeah. That only does HD over HDMI. So that's one thing I would want, like a 4K signal into this, because of course that would be useful. But just having the ability, I mean, you could control all the Sony cameras from behind the scenes. Wouldn't that be amazing?
I already checked out the software.
You checked it out? So should we try it?
I tried, yeah.
Okay.
But that's what we love. No innovation in like you identify an issue, and you try to solve it.
Yes,
that's what drives the industry forward. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a thing that you need and not a thing that you don't need.
And also the nice thing about this is it doesn't seem to be a subscription. So it's I think it's a €199 or dollar purchase once, and then you have this control, which is nice. So you don't have to pay a subscription fee. And and there was one comment that actually I think was quite interesting, which is fair enough, which said that this is from William Young, one person who's commenting, community member who's thankfully adding a lot of discussions in our articles. He said that this is the type of hacky thing companies often avoid. I mean, sure, it's working in this video currently, but a simple software firmware update by Blackmagic and poof, this could simply stop working. Yeah, that's fair enough, of course. I mean, it's kind of putting itself in between two manufacturers. So it could be easily, like with a software update, even unintentionally,
but I think it's fair enough to just contact the creator here and ask him if he has like a plan B or safety net, just to assure people that that's not gonna happen. Or
knowing Blackmagic design, they're usually quite open to solutions from other companies that they don't want to do themselves.
Like cameras, you mean?
Like the Nexus camera, for example, the Nexus G1 camera that we reported about, which is, using a Blackmagic sensor, actually a Blackmagic Pocket 6K sensor, and putting it into a different housing. And they seem to be supportive of that project. So I hope that the developers, Blackmagic developers, are in contact with these guys. But yeah, it's worth finding out, because it is a fair assessment, of course, that this could happen. But in general, we're just amazed that somebody's working on this. And of course, I mean, there were a lot of comments of people hoping also to add this functionality to other camera manufacturers, for example, Canon or Fuji or whatever, to also support these cameras that are widely used.
Nice.
Cool. All right, let's move on to a bit of a human story, which I found quite interesting, so I wrote about it. There's a new interview with Ken Burns. Do you know who Ken Burns is? A very famous documentary filmmaker from the US who has, of course, he's done a lot of historical documentaries on various subjects, and I think one of the most famous ones is called The Civil War. And it's a historical deep dive documentaries for PBS, so the public broadcasting service in the US, is his kind of thing. And his name is probably most well known because of the Ken Burns effect. Now that is just to demonstrate you this effect where I'll just play a trailer of one of his latest productions here, which actually uses a lot of the Ken Burns effect, which is basically a zoom into static images. So you have static images where you don't have actually, like video for something, and in order to make them more interesting in the video, is zooming into the photo. It sounds very obvious, but he and his production companies were the first ones to do this in the 70s. And because at the time he's explaining this in this long interview, actually, it was not so easy to do. Actually, it was very complicated to execute this in the pre-digital era. Right, so he established that, and he couldn't care less about having his name attached to this effect. He didn't care about this, and that's the interesting story about this interview that I wrote about here. There's a long interview he made with GQ, and there's a whole segment when he talks about how this whole effect came to be known after him, and the reason is Steve Jobs. So it turned out Apple was working on iMovie in 1999, and at that point, this effect, of course, you could already execute it in Final Cut and the Premiere at the time and Avid by keyframing stuff. Mm-hmm. You could do a beginning and end keyframe and just say zoom. You're like, this is the beginning, this is the, for example, full size of the image, and then the end is, for example, the close-up of this person. And then you would have to manually animate it, like basically beginning, end, and then it would just automatically do that. But they wanted to automate it. Apple wanted to automate this effect, and they did that with the iMovie that came out, I think, in 99 or 2000. And Steve Jobs called him up, and he I can really just recommend you watch this interview with him, because he was like, oh, here's Steve Jobs. And he was like, yeah, right. No, really. Here's Steve Jobs and I want to talk to you. We are working on something and we need to talk. So he flew out to Cupertino to meet him. And he said that they put him in a conference room, and Steve Jobs explained to him, and he met a lot of other developers there, and he explained to him that we have been working on something, and we are actually, I want to use the working title of this feature with your name. And then he explained that basically this is he wants to call it the Ken Burns effect, because he established this in his documentaries. And we want to pay you for that. And he said, I don't do endorsements, like I'm not interested. I'm not taking money for this. Like he's really very much somebody who's working for public broadcast and so on. He's not very keen on having his name all over the place. And he said, well, actually, Steve Jobs, I think, was shocked. He was like, what? Why? You don't want my money? What's going on? And then they ended up negotiating, and his production company, and they got like $1 million worth of hardware on software from Apple in exchange for the rights of using the name. But he gave it all away. Like he donated all of this, except for, he said, 2 computers, because at that time he didn't use any computers for any of their work. He was very reluctant. He said he's a what's it, like a Luddite, like somebody who doesn't like technology. He didn't want to touch any of that. So a very interesting story actually how this came about, and then they put this into every version of Final Cut and iMovie ever since. But who would have thought that this is like there's like a whole
story behind
it,
effect,
because it sounds so obvious here, like zooming into an image. It's literally in every NLE, in every TikTok, every CapCut on the phone. It's the most obvious thing, but somebody had to invent it, and he was the one. And he also explains in this interview how complicated it was to do that in the 70s, because he had fights with his editors at the time to have a 32-second shot of an painting. He was doing something about somebody from the Civil War and some general or something, and they had nothing except for one painting. So he could do I do stupid reenactments with actors that don't look like the person, or do I just do a very slow zoom in for 32 seconds and come up with a very compelling narrative that actually supports it? And he proves that it works, right? You can explain a lot in the off and just really focus on this when you do that. So
try to do this today when people have a patience of a 3-second thing. It's like
but still you see it all the time in documentaries, right? It's maybe not a 32-second shot anymore,
but it's like
different
era.
Very interesting story. And worth watching this interview. All right. Very different topic. Moving on to a little bit of a less human. We're talking about AI stuff. So Audiio. That's the company with the 2 eyes, which is a stock audio platform, of course. They introduced a new feature called Audio Voices.
So this audio voices is, in a way, when we are talking now, for example, and if I wish that my voice would be a bit more like deeper or nicer, or a female voice, whatever it is, you have with the Audio Voices, you have 24 models currently that you can change your voice into something else.
So you're saying it yourself?
You're saying it yourself. You better say it when the audio setup is good and nice, because of course the end result should also sound nice. It depends on the quality of the original. But then for now they have 24 model voices, and they claim that those voices are licensed from real people and not digitally reconstructed.
So we actually try it? So if you say a sentence now, Felix can change it in post to a different sounding voice?
Yeah, of course. So what do you want me to say? You want to talk about my
trip next week to the UK, where I'm going to finally test the GFX Eterna 55.
Well, that's going to be quite interesting to see. And we've been following the GFX Eterna 55 for over a year now.
Finally, we'll be able to do our hands-on review of the camera and I'm very much looking forward.
Felix, so what are you going to make me?
It's a surprise.
You'll surprise me.
Maybe 2-3 different ones.
Great. Okay. Yeah. But it's nice. It's nice because you, depending on the production you're doing, sometimes, I know it always sounds a bit bad when you say, okay, you don't have to go anymore to a professional narrator and so on, but you are able to change your voice into something that actually support your production. And I think it's and by the way, Audiio will add more voices in the future. So,
can you also recreate? I mean, that's the scary bit, right? I mean, there's other services where you can kind of recreate your own voice. I think that's it's again as a bit of a slippery slope on one hand, but where of course somebody could kind of use your voice to do some scams on the phone or whatever.
Yeah, but that's not the point of this specific thing.
Of course not.
I again, it's your own voice that being transformed or manipulated into somebody else's voice. And that's not necessarily, it's not that you can suddenly have a voice like a familiar voice and imitate it. It's a completely different thing. And you'll be charged, I mean, it's part of the Audiio Pro Plus subscription. And for the first year, you're paying $216. And that's instead of like $360. And it's a quite comprehensive list of things that you can do with the Pro Plus. But yeah, I encourage you to try. It's always fun to do those things. And here in this specific service, I think it can really support your production.
All right, let's move on to Imagen AI, who introduced Adaptable AI color grading and more. So Imagen AI is...
Well, this is a company that maybe not so much known for filmmakers, but for photographers. This company really took by storm I think it's mostly known in the US, a lot of wedding photographers. They know the software because it really helped to help you with the workflow when you're taking a photo, basically. And it's interesting to hear there are like two founders of the companies, two partners, three guys, and one of them got married a few years ago, and professional photographer took photos of the wedding, and he had to wait months until he got, I think it's happening to all of us. And then we tried to investigate what's happening. They actually found out that there's a whole workflow behind of that specific photographer, and they were thinking how to streamline, how to come to the point that the workflow is much easier for a photographer, and the result will be to give back the photos much faster. So that's how they established their name. And the next obvious thing for them, especially now that AI is all over the place, is to do things for video. And one of those things that they're trying to do is streamline the work for video, including color grading.
And editing, actually.
And editing, that's true. So, but the main thing here is AI color grading, and this is to match different colors. And we know that a lot of the wedding photographers are also servicing the people with videos. And I think it's actually worth looking at what they do, especially if you like trends, especially if you want to see where the industry is heading to. And I will definitely, I'm just very curious. I want to see how this will treat videos, because we are so, we shoot flat picture more profile, and then we're looking for a specific LUT, and we are not even professional color graders. So for our work, we try to find things which are balanced between to look good and kind of instant. So I'm very curious to see how Imagen is doing it, and they also have Adobe Premiere Pro plug-in to help to streamline the workflow.
Okay, interesting. So they're going full video now.
That's right, and it's still beta, but just head to the homepage, see maybe this is something for you to try.
Cool. And the last thing, which is also AI related and also color grading related, is about an update for fylm.ai. who we've worked with in the past. They are adding an Adobe Premiere extension for seamless collaboration and full remote grading. So tell me, Johnny, you've been a big proponent of using Film.ai.
Yeah, I've been using them quite a lot. There are some changes that maybe I'm not so fond of when it comes to automatic AI grading. I think, but I fully understand why they do this. But at the end, this is a tool that we use a lot. You simply export a photo or short video from your timeline. That's how it used to be. Bring it to Film AI, and then, by the way, this is film with Y, not that you look for film with I. This is a film.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes.
And then you have to bring it first to Rec 709, and then you color grade it. And now they're just trying to offer an easier workflow with the Adobe Premiere plugin. I tried it. It just takes a little bit of just to get used to, but I think at the end it can save some time using it. And I guess I will still use it on the old way. It's more of a habit than using it from Adobe Premiere. I still have to try maybe more to get used to the new way, but maybe being an old-fashioned.
Well, I think it's great to have this option because, I mean, it's nice that those companies now realize that you don't always want a round trip to a browser.
Yeah.
And in general, we've seen it also with Filmstro. I think we reported about this last week or the week before, that now it's kind of in Premiere, and now it just makes sense to have it inside the NLE.
Many companies, that's exactly what they aim to ride on Premiere and kind of stay within the Premiere garden here. Yeah, it's great. I mean, like you said, I've also been using Film.ai quite a bit. I mean, I think you get really good results if you know how to play it. It depends. It's very
Sometimes
funny.
it adds a little bit of a lot of noise in the shadows sometimes.
That's one of the issues, and I think to start with, when you already choose, you have to choose the color profile, the camera color profile.
Of course,
if you to start with. And somehow, I know that they're working according to white papers or something, like to be accurate. I just find it sometimes a little bit too saturated.
Yeah.
So when you start really saturated, when you open the image, then the shadows get a bit of noise. But it's not always. I mean, I don't know if this is more AI related or the function of the plugin. All in all, it's really good. I mean, it's working well. It helped me a lot with achieving nice color grades to some stuff that I'm doing. And of course, if you look at their own material, it looks fabulous. Yeah. But maybe this is something.
Maybe we are using it wrong. I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, but yeah, we like it a lot. I've also been using it, but you have much more experience with it. But most of the reviews you've been watching on CineD, I think, have been graded with this. In the last couple of years,
or a bit of another way,
or another lot.
Another way. We have a little secret here that we are willing to share only if you write in the comments that you want us to reveal the secret.
Yeah.
Joking.
All right, let's move on. I wrote an article about the Apple Vision Pro strategy for immersive video production. Now, this is based on, they did 2 days, which we reported about before, in Cupertino, inviting filmmakers to come to the developer center actually and spend time with each other, presentations regarding immersive video specifically. Now, we know this is still a small niche, but it's growing, and I've been kind of been interested in going into this bubble. We have Leon Bernard, who's a Blackmagic certified instructor, who we also had some guest articles about, who also has been doing a lot of work about with the Blackmagic Ursa Cine Immersive. And he's actually right now running workshops for Able Cine in New York for immersive storytelling. And basically you see how much effort Apple is actually putting into this to get more content produced for the Vision Pro. And and of course with Blackmagic Design helping with this. And with these, in these 2 days, they ran through a lot of interesting things. And basically, it's, the tech is called static foveation, and we have the Blackmagic Ursa Cine Immersive shooting 16K, that's 8K per eye, but streaming that is impossible. So like Apple is explaining how you can actually deal with this footage and get the best out of it for those use cases. They are actually preserving, and that's some interesting insights from those 2 days, which I basically summarized in this long article that, like some people reported about. The videos, by the way, are also online. I mean, it's like 8-hour videos, 2 of them for those 2 days. And you can just check them out. And they're explaining a lot of stuff. So, for example, in order to be able to stream that kind of resolution, they are degrading the detail everywhere except for the center where you're looking. So you literally, it's streaming where you're looking. It's downloading more information from where you're looking, and then it's degrading the rest, and you're supposed not to see that. They're also showing some other options, of course. Vimeo actually is supporting the format now, but only up to 4K, which is nothing if you have a device like this on your nose, because you see them so up close, you need more resolution. But it is possible to stream through Vimeo now. It's interesting. They also are announced that they will stream live sports with this. There's been news that I think there's a Champions League stadium somewhere in Europe, I think somewhere in Spain, where they put 16 cameras. So you can watch the Champions League live in Immersive. They also are going to stream in early 26 a Lakers game, NBA game. So they're really trying different stuff, which is interesting. Like it's all going to be event-based. And yeah, just very interesting. So
should I be the party pooper again?
No. Okay. I don't want you. Okay. Like last time, did you read the comments? There was 6 people complaining about you being such a party pooper around immersive videos. So just sip it. Yeah. So basically, it's just interesting. It's really a deep dive in the technology. If you're interested in that, check out the article or watch the full videos. But if you want to save some time, just read my articles. There's also cinematographers who are working with the immersive format, talking about how to actually, deal with this kind of equipment if you are shooting remotely, because of course the equipment is quite large. How to move the camera, when to cut, how to move it, how to keep the horizon level, all those things that are very important in order to not get people seasick when they are watching content on this. It's all in there, and all that information is free in these videos. And so that's that. And let's move on to a bit more gear news. Just want to highlight that because I found it interesting. So Cartoni, the Italian tripod manufacturer that you did a nice factory tour about 7 years ago, and which still I think I embedded it in this video if you're interested. Family-owned business. They just announced it's called a Ragno pod, and it's basically a portable tripod riser that allows you to rise your tripod even higher without. How should I explain it if you don't see the video version of this? So basically, it's like a tripod for your tripod. It's a tripod for your tripod.
Exactly, it's a podium for your tripod, a portable podium.
Yeah, so it's basically straight, so it doesn't extend the legs even further to take up even more, space wherever you're standing with your tripod, because we know the problem of very high tripods is that they spread out so far that it's literally a tripping hazard for people. And you usually use this on events, right? So events usually mean a lot of people around. So the danger of people tripping up is higher. With this riser, you're not extending your base even more. You just lift it up. Of course.
It comes with a free chair or something, leather?
It actually comes with an optional additional podium. Yeah, okay. That's an optional thing. It's an operator platform that is also foldable. But yeah, you can rise it up 120 centimeters. That's exactly what you often need if you, for example, shoot somebody on a stage or something like that. And you don't have, we all know this. I mean, for anybody who's been shooting events before, very often you have the event company put up additional podiums for the camera operators, which of course adds complications. Sometimes if it's a smaller event, you might not have that option. So it's nice to have this foldable little tripod riser. Now, a lot of people actually commented on this because there has been a solution like this in the past, which I was not aware of, but a lot of people knew it. It's called the Spider Pod. And they said it's been discontinued. So a lot of people seem to be excited that this is
Back.
This is back and now available. It's pricey. I mean, I have to say it's a bit of a steep price for something like that. It's around $2,000, which is a lot of money for something that is basically, lifting your tripod even more. But knowing Cartoni, they really make production gear that is made to last. And I'm sure it's not an easy kind of Temu style thing that will break the second time you use it. So it will have, tripod grade quality. So you can use it for many, many years for sure, even though we haven't used it. So yeah. So actually that's some of the comments here. We're talking about this. And the Spider Pod also, I think, had a similar price. So yeah. All right. That's that. It's called the Cartoni Ragno Pod.
Two more quick things to cover. One is from ZILR. This is an Australian company, and they just introduced an e-powered cart for production mobility. And I have to say, just look at the video, guys. It's just fun to watch. And besides being able to move your stuff from A to B, you can also move yourself from A to B. Maybe this is something that I should consider soon-ish. But there are two models, like a two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. And of course, it's all powered by battery. And it can act also as a dolly from A to B, like small dolly in a way. And you know what? With the two-wheel drives, you can even drive up to 16 kilometers per hour. That's like 10 miles an hour, which is not so bad.
Actually, I only see it used as a dolly in the video. They're not really transporting gear.
No, they are transporting. You can see in the video. So it's very easy. You can either push or pull. Oh, yeah. And recently it really became a trend with some of the Chinese companies to introduce carts like this. But I haven't seen anyone doing like electric cart. We've seen other carts before, but they were mostly to move the equipment and not really to ride on it.
I guess it's going to take them 3 months because they need to see this video first. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that's really cool. I mean,
it's nice. It's cool, and it's also in terms of pricing, it's 1,500 for the two-wheel drives model.
Can it collapse? I mean, you can collapse it into your car.
You can collapse it. I mean,
is it heavy?
It is. I have all the information for you, Nino.
Yeah, just wonder because
without battery for the two-wheel drive is 28 kilo.
Oh wow, that's heavy. The empty one?
And
28 kilos.
Yeah, and 32 kilos for the four-wheel drive.
Without batteries?
This is without battery. And, we cannot invent specifications. That's what they write.
Okay.
But what else is here?
It's pretty cool. I mean, it'd be fun on set to have that.
Well, that's the thing. If it's become a hustle, because everybody's playing with that, and you suddenly find everybody's
you find the production assistant.
Exactly.
The production assistant is using this to get stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
But it makes sense. I mean, again, it makes sense. I think it's good for what it is. The showcasing in the video is quite nice.
Be fun to review, actually. Yeah.
You see, because you're already thinking about driving around in the streets of
Vienna. I live 5 minutes away walking, so this could reduce it to 2 minutes.
And then what? Then take the kids and consider them to be equipment, or what exactly?
Kids would love it.
Kids would love it. Good. So maybe this is something you want to consider to buy as a Christmas present for your kids.
How much is it then?
As I said, it's for the two-wheel drive, it's 1,500. Quite expensive for a present, but for professional tools, that's fine. And for the four-wheel drive, it's $2,000. I
think actually for what it does, I think it's not if you think expensive. About how much one of those, what are they called, the rock and roller, whatever carts are costing, it's insane sometimes for something purely mechanical. And it doesn't shock me, to be honest. It's just the weight that. Yeah, I mean, of course, you usually
the weight of the cart itself.
You transport this in a car, and I guess it needs some kind of weight in order to be safe, not to tip over when you're driving it, when it's moving.
But nice innovation. We like it.
But is it basically, so when you pull it, is it helping you? Because I only see people sitting on it.
No. You can activate the whole thing to push or pull with the help of the battery here, in the sense like it's electric. Yeah, it's not only for driving.
Okay.
So you can do the different use cases here.
All right. Well, Yeah, it looks. There it is, collapsed. That's quite small.
Yeah,
nice.
it's small. I mean, we have all the specifications in the article, but
Nice.
yeah,
maybe a fun review early next year. Let's see when the weather clears up. Good.
What do you say? You want actually them to have a version with a big umbrella for the Austrian weather, or maybe okay.
You need an umbrella anyway, either for sunshine or rain, or snow. All right. Last topic. Rolux V-mount battery series. I mean, I've actually reviewed a couple of their batteries before. So what's new about these ones?
So Rolux has been known for doing a lot of OEM stuff, and now for the last few years they're coming up with their own stuff. This time, I mean, the company is very solid. It's a Chinese company, and they are using really batteries from, I think, Sanyo and from Samsung. Yeah, so they're really trying to use very good cells. Now they have three different types of batteries. One is the Dynasty. This is more like for us on the move user that needs something small, something with USB-C to power on the gimbal, drones, charging, or so on, and they're quite affordable. One step up is the Density series. This is coming for a bit more like a higher, when you need a higher output, or DTAP and so on. It still has the USB-C powering option. And the last one is the Vortec. And the Vortec is, in a way, it's the most professional one. When I say most professional, it's just for heavy duty, when you really need it for lights, and there is no USB-C here. So it's nice that they kind of defining three different families for different usage, because you know how it is. Sometimes it's a bit of a mix with other companies.
But they're all 14.4 volt about. So it's not, I mean, they're all made for cameras, basically. You can use them all with cameras. I mean, there's no higher powered ones that are only...
Well, the Vortec is also, according at least for the company, it also comes to cater the needs of some lights.
Yeah, in terms of capacity, but I see that's also 14.5
all
volts.
14, that's right.
Yeah.
And they have different... the only thing with Rolux, I think it's still not so easy to find them, let's say B&H or CVP. They have their own, they're using different distribution channels. But if you like what you see, I'm sure it's worth...
Yeah, it's interesting that they are the OEM brand behind a lot of the other brands that people are using that a lot of people might not be aware of. But if you're interested in that, just check their website.
Yeah, we see this more and more, by the way, from Chinese companies that used to be in the shade, and now they're coming out with their own brand name and products.
Cool.
Nice.
No, I mean the batteries from them that I reviewed before were really good, and capacity wise, and especially the connectors. You know, like you can. It's so nice that now all of them basically get USB-C 100 watt output, so you can really high power. You can just charge your phone or whatever. Or even a lot
work
more
on the laptop. That's the main thing.
Recharge your laptop when you're flying, and so yeah, great.
Well, enjoy while it lasts. Let's see how long we can do this on a flight.
All right, should we wrap it up?
Yep.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you, Nino.
Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment and give us a good rating on your favorite podcasting platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Email us at podcast@cined.com if you have any questions or comments and want us to talk about something, or leave a comment, of course, on YouTube. And see you next week.
Ciao.